good day. Got my notes here, and I am live on Instagram. Hi Instagram, hey Facebook. So, thank you for joining me on this broadcast today. My name is June Allen, and I am excited to be sharing with you today's topic, which is all about how do you stay optimistic when things are tough? How do you, keep going when things just feel awful? How do you maintain hope? How do you do that? And this actually came from a question that was on my timeline this week, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to dive in a little bit deeper and to give you all some hope. For those of you that don't know me, I came into this whole arena of wellness, of healing, in 2009, and I went into recovery from addiction to dysfunctional relationships, and yeah, had an amazing time going through that 12-step process. And hi, thanks for joining. And I really needed to I really needed to get clear on what was underneath all of that stuff, because what I realized when going through the 12-step process is that the cultural aspect of it, the whole thing around the impact of racism wasn't addressed on that level. So so I thought it was really important for me to do some more research on it, to read and all that kind of stuff. And I began to feel so much better about myself. I started to feel more confident about being a black woman. And it got to the point where I just had to start sharing this out with other people, because it was just so good. Hi Rob, thanks for joining. So it was so powerful. And fast forward 8-9 years later, and I'm here sharing this stuff with you. So that's a little bit of my backstory for those of you that don't know me. So if you know anyone that's interested in this topic around how to maintain hope, somebody that's feeling a little bit low, a little bit not feeling very well and kind of a bit fed up or whatever, share it with them, tag them, share the love. Before we get into the content, I'm going to go through the housekeeping. So housekeeping number 1 is that on the 16th of February, which is not this weekend but next weekend, I am hosting a sister circle. It's a book club, and we are studying Sisters of the Yam. I've left it in my bedroom. We're studying Sisters of the Yam, Black Women and Self-Recovery. So we're going to read a chapter from the book. It's not just about studying the book. You'll also get an opportunity to understand the characteristics of self-hate, the tools for empowerment, and the promises of sacred self-love. You'll also get homework, which is what I call heart work. So you'll have the opportunity to continue the conversation afterwards. There's a private Facebook group, private WhatsApp group, so the ladies we can continue that conversation. I didn't just want it to be a book club where people show up once a month and then kind of go home and kind of forget about it. I wanted it to be an ongoing thing, an ongoing experience of exploration and healing. So that's why I've kind of done it the way that I have. So if you click the link in the bio, if you're interested in that, you can go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. If you would like to attend but you don't live in London, or you live in internationally, I do actually record along with the journal prompts and the audios and stuff that I do. That I create for the ladies when they do it live. I actually, you can actually get hold of that as well. So if you're interested in that, then I have I can give you like there's a free taste if you'd like to try it. If you click the link in the bio and go to the Sacred Sister page, there's a link in there that was actually give you, it says, free gifts. Racial wellness for heart work for racial wellness, a free ebook. So if you click on that, drop your email address in it, you will get the opportunity to have a sample of what happens in the live. So, and also if you're not, if you're international, you don't live in London, and you want to try the first session, which is all about kind of exploring your black femininity, then you'll get an opportunity to explore that absolutely free. So click the link in the bio and sign up for that if that's something that you're interested in. So the second piece of housekeeping is that I am going to be hosting a Wounded Daughters Masterclass at the end of March to correlate with Mother's Day. I did do a boot camp about this last year, and it was very powerful, really powerful. Yeah, so and people are starting to ask me, you know, am I going to be doing this again? So I'm going to so I've basically created a page for waiting list. So if you're interested in that, if you've got a difficult relationship with your mum and you want to learn about boundaries, you want to learn how to take care of yourself, you want to learn, you know, to understand, you know, your mum's behaviour and all of that kind of stuff, click the link in the bio, and there's a link there that will take you to the waiting list of Wounded Daughters waiting list is what it's called. So yeah, so click the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net. Right, so that's it in terms of the housekeeping. So for those of you that have just joined, I've seen a few people that have just hopped on. Hi Vanessa, thanks for joining. My name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach black women how to heal from the impact of racism with racial sobriety and personal empowerment. So what is racial sobriety? Racial sobriety is the relationship that you have with yourself. So that's what I teach. I teach you know, how to understand how racism has been internalized with you personally, and what you need to do to deal with it, to shed it, to own and stand in your you know, in your divine femininity, in your black power, if you will. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me. So now we are going to get into the content. So grab your pens, grab your journals, and you know, you might want to take some notes with this one, because yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing this content with you. So let's get into the content. So the topic for today is, how do you stay optimistic during tough times? Now, yesterday we talked a lot about shame. Hi, CD Wood, how are you? I hope you're well. Yesterday we talked a lot about shame, how shaming black people doesn't work, yeah, just what, you know, the importance of understanding your own shame, so that you can understand why, if that's sort of that's behaviour that you do, to understand why you do it, and why it's important for us to stop doing that as a community, to stop name calling and all of that kind of stuff. If you didn't watch yesterday's broadcast, you know, go back and watch it, because it's really it's quite a powerful session. There was a lot of engagement and stuff in it as well. So yeah, just click the link in the click the link in the bio and go back to yesterday's one, and you'll see it there. So so number one, the first way that we can remain optimistic is to be patient. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to understand that, you know, we didn't become, for those of us that are broken, that are trying to heal, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight. And the healing process, the recovery process, whatever route that you take to do this healing process, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And because you've got to remember that patience is also important, because we're still living under a system that is still oppressing us, that is still shaming us, that is still telling us that we're bad, that we're this, that we're that, that we're ugly, that we're violent, you know. So it's important that we are patient with ourselves, you know. And patient means just giving yourself a break. Just give yourself a break. You know, a lot of us are so hard on ourselves, a lot more vicious and savage with ourselves than anything external could ever be, you know. So it is important for us to really, it's like I was saying yesterday about focusing on your own healing. Be patient with yourself. Be conscious of how you talk to yourself. Be conscious of, are you compassionate with yourself? You know, do you listen? Do you pay attention to your body? Do you pay attention to your thinking? You know, patience and giving ourselves permission to slow down is gonna help us become more optimistic, because once you understand what's going on with you, then you can start to make changes. You can't make changes or you know, go through the healing process if you're constantly on the go, if you're constantly busy, if you're constantly trying to run away from your pain, constantly trying to run away from the people and the places and the things that have upset you. What's important is that you give yourself permission to pause and to be patient, because it really, really, really does take time. It really does take time. Number two, optimism is also about asking yourself, you know, what is the situation trying to teach me? You know, hi Astrid, thanks for joining. What is the situation trying to teach you? A lot of times we can be stuck in the pain, we can be stuck in the trauma, we can be stuck in the negativity because it is so painful. And we kind of wear, we can sit in the self-pity. We can sit in the self-pity because we feel powerless over certain things. We feel powerless over the people that are not nice to us. We feel powerless over white supremacy that continues to hammer us on a daily basis. So it's difficult for us to sit in the solution. It's difficult for us to sit in the solution. And this is the reason why I wanted to come on here and talk about this topic specifically, because it's important to have balance. It's important to have balance and to remember that, we're not as powerless as we think we are. We are powerless over certain people, but we're not powerless over how we treat ourselves. We're not powerless over that. So it's important to ask yourself, what is this whatever the situation is that's bothering you, that you're finding difficult, what is that situation trying to teach you? Is it trying to teach you that you need to set a boundary with somebody? Is it teaching you that the other person is just not emotionally available to you? Is it trying to teach you that you just can't change other people? Is that the lesson? A lot of us get so stuck on the external stuff, and I was talking about this yesterday, that it becomes a distraction. It becomes a distraction from what we need to do for ourselves. It becomes a distraction from what we need to do for ourselves. In recovery, we talk about in addiction, we talk about let it begin with me. It's about letting go of the things that you ain't got no business in, and just focusing on what you change, because therein lies the insanity. Therein lies the insanity. When you keep trying to explore, well, why is that person doing that to me, and why is she saying that to me, and why is she making me feel like that, and why doesn't she just do this, and why don't they just do that? That is a recipe for insanity, because you can't change other people. It's important to understand it to a certain degree. It's important to understand it for a certain degree, but what I'm talking about is quite often a lot of us become obsessed. We become obsessed with what the external things doing, be it white people or our mums or family members or whatever that's behaving in an inappropriate way. We become obsessed with their behaviour, because we tell ourselves that if they change, then I'm going to feel all right. If they change, then I can feel hopeful. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. We have to be willing to explore what this situation is trying to teach us. And the way that the universe works, I strongly believe this, is that the universe wants us to win. The universe wants us to stand in our greatness. And so we are going to keep being presented with situations, people, places and things that are going to call up the stuff that we don't want to look at. We're busy looking at what other people are doing, and the universe, our higher self, our higher power, is trying to say to us, I'm going to give you this person. I'm going to give you this person because I want you to learn about that situation within yourself. I'll give you an example. Before I came into recovery, I kept finding myself in situations, in relationships with men that were really angry, that were absolutely steaming. And at the time, I was like, wow, why do I keep getting in these relationships with these really angry people? Hi, Noriaka, nice to meet you. Hi, thanks for joining. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Apologies if I didn't. Norioko, yeah? Yeah, I kept finding myself in relationships with angry men. And I was like, what is this about? Why do I keep finding myself in situations with angry? What is that about? But in the recovery process, in the healing process, I began to understand that the reason why I kept being presented with men that were angry is because it was a mirror of my own repressed anger. And for a long time, I couldn't access it. I couldn't access my anger because I'd covered it up. I'd buried a lot of it. I'd covered it with different things, food, whatever, and tried to, use other relationships to mask my pain as opposed to dealing with myself. And yesterday we talked about codependency. That was the definition of codependency. Using other people to mask pain, to mask my pain, thinking that somebody else is going to make me feel good. What the lesson in that situation for me was that I needed to be honest about my anger. and to do the internal work required in order for me to release it and to honor my anger as part of being human. And a lot of us as black people have got a lot of anger, and you know what? That's okay, because we've got a lot of shit to be angry about. To be honest, we have got so much stuff to be angry about. But a lot of us, we don't know how to deal with our anger. We don't know how to manage our anger. We don't understand our anger. A lot of us as black people, we're shamed by white supremacy and others for being angry. You know, and I'm sure that a lot of us on here can relate to, you know, parents saying, you know, if you don't stop, if you don't you know, stop, then I'm going to give you something to cry about. You know, when we try to express our anger as children, it was shut down by our parents. A lot of times we were beaten by our parents for expressing emotion, for expressing anger or showing anger. We were always taught to swallow it. And again, I believe that's stuff that came from the plantations as well. Us not being allowed to honour our humanity. The healing process is not all about, you know, flowers and rainbows. It's about getting honest about what happened to us and finding a safe space to be able to process that. Finding a safe space for us to be able to process that. The topic that we're going to be talking about in the next book club is about racial stress. So, and we're going to be talking about, you know, the emotions that are underneath racial stress, the rage, the shame, the fear, all of that kind of stuff, because that's what's underneath a lot of our stress and our shame and all the rest of it. And because we don't know, we don't understand it, a lot of us we suppress it. And then what happens is those feelings don't go away. They end up getting played out in the relationships, like it did with me. I ended up with you know, men that were really angry, or I found it difficult to, you know, I basically turned the anger towards myself. I would be negative towards myself, or in my other friendships or relationships, I would be passive aggressive because I didn't think that I had the right to be angry, so it would leak out as being passive aggressive. So what I learned in the healing process is that it's okay for me to be angry. I just have to take responsibility for that anger. I had to take responsibility for that anger. So it really is about understanding what the lesson is. You know, what's the lesson for you underneath the discomfort? What is it that your higher self is trying to teach you about your situation, about your pain? What do you need to learn? What's your life lesson? What's your life lesson? You know, I believe that my life lesson is about, you know, it really is about going home to myself first and foremost, and then connecting with other people. The thing that I was most scared about when I first went into recovery was being emotionally intimate, connecting with other black people, because that's where my pain was. I desperately wanted to do it, but I was terrified of it. That was my lesson. And I wouldn't be on here today talking to you if I hadn't done that work. You know, I wouldn't be able to have these conversations. I wouldn't be able to sit in a room with other ladies and allow them to be vulnerable and hold space for them if I hadn't done that work myself. You know, there's a reason why we get given these things. And it's not to say, you know, not to victim blame or say, well, you know, whatever's going on for you is your fault. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is, if you want to maintain optimism, if you want to live in the solution, it requires you to dig deep. It requires you to explore. One of the things that I saw on my timeline on Instagram the other day, and I thought it was just amazing, and I will do a separate broadcast on this. And you know, they were saying that, you know, what does self-love look like? What is it? And self-love essentially is exploring self-hate. Self-love is actually exploring self-hate. You can't have self-love unless you understand why you hate yourself. Does that make sense? You know, you just can't. It's just not going to happen. You know, it's just not going to happen. So Astrid is saying it's so true. I recently met a man who was totally available, working on his staff, attentive, respectful, and more. But I'm finding it a struggle to embrace what he's about. That's what I'm talking about. That's another thing that happens when you don't understand the lesson. So now this is an opportunity for you, Astrid, to really look for the lesson. Look for the lesson in it, to think about, you know, how you can receive love without the suffering. You know, and we can talk about this. You know, we can talk about this more in the group, or you know, if you're coming to the workshop, you know, we can talk about this a lot more. the whole thing around being around people that are available, because that's the thing that happens when you start to get, and this is how the healing is so powerful, because when you start doing this work, you start to attract people that reflect who you are. So I no longer attract people that are disconnected from their anger. I attract people that are doing the work, that are willing to look at this stuff, that are willing to have conversations about this stuff, that are willing to be vulnerable about it and to tell the truth about their anger. So that is so empowering, because then it doesn't leak out. It doesn't leak out in other relationships, because I understand what the lesson is, and I understand that other person understands what the lesson is as well. So it becomes really beautiful. And this is how we can start to have more compassion as well for our brothers and sisters in the community. Like what I was saying yesterday about the shaming thing. Once you understand your own stuff, it's much easier. It's much easier for you to have more compassion for your brothers and sisters. You don't have to judge your brothers and sisters, because you know what's going on for you. So that's important. That's number 2. So exploring what the situation is trying to teach you. Number 3, and this is a really kind of like basic one, how you can stay optimistic is to keep returning to basics. Keep returning back to basics. A lot of times when we do this work, we can become overwhelmed. Sometimes, the healing process is a roller coaster. Yeah, even for me, kind of 8-9 years in, it's still a roller coaster. I still find myself, in pain over certain things, but what happens is it's like an onion. The healing process is like an onion. Yeah, and as you take one layer off, you get another layer, and you just become more and more emotionally intelligent. You get to understand yourself a lot more, and your relationship dynamics will keep changing as you change, which is the most powerful thing. So when that happens, when I keep going back to basics and I keep having all these like little rock bottoms about different things, this is when you need to go back to basics. You need to keep asking yourself, how's the sleep? How's the food? Do you need to set boundaries? All that kind of stuff. Am I nurturing myself? Am I continuing to nurture myself? Do I need to put some stuff down? You remain optimistic when and that is so empowering, being able to do that stuff for yourself. Because a lot of times we get trapped in that whole thing of, I can't take care of myself. And a lot of us as wounded daughters, as wounded children who haven't healed, we get stuck in that kind of childlike thinking that I want somebody else to take care of me. I want somebody else to do it for me. I want somebody else to make me feel better. I want somebody else to heal me. I can't do it by myself. I need somebody else to do it. We get trapped in that thinking. So what's important about the going back to basics is the thing around nurturing, around self-nurturing, self-mothering, self-fathering, and being consistent with doing that, especially when things get tough. When things get tough, there's nothing nicer than, when things get really tough and you've got tools. You've got tools, and that's when you realize, actually, I do have some control. I do have some control over this. I do have things that I can do to take care of myself. I can say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes to myself. And that's where the power is. That's where the optimism is going to come, because when you get used to taking care of yourself instead of looking at other people to do it for you, then you think, what, I got this. I can do this. I can do this. And this is what I encourage the ladies in the workshop to do. Part of the tools of sacred self-love, some of the things that we read out in the session, and that's why reading out those tools in every session is really important, because I want the ladies to have a reminder of what they can do when things get tough, what they can do when things get terrible. There's also an ebook around support if things get really tough. They get this e-guide with phone numbers and loads of podcasts that I've created and audios and stuff like that, so that the ladies know whatever they're going through, no matter how difficult things get, there's always something, there's always an action that they can take. And some of it's working with me, and some of it's external. Some of it's external, some of it, I can't do everything. I can't, that's not my, my priority in this situation is to make sure that you get the support that you need, whether you're working with me directly or not, or whether you work with someone else. That the most important thing is that you get the support you need. So that extra ebook that I give people that come into the circle, You know, they understand, and they know that they're going to get that support, whatever's going on for them. So yeah, just going back to basics and remembering that you do have the power to change things just by looking at your food and looking at your sleep and all of that kind of stuff, and looking at your, you know, your sort of immediate environment, how that is impacting, you know, you feeling bad about yourself, and then you can take action from there. You know, that's number 3. So number 4, let's have a look. So number 4 is you need to take a break sometimes from healing. Sometimes you just need a duvet day. Sometimes you just need a duvet day. You know, just to hang out, just to sleep, just to do whatever you need to do. If you've got children, I'm sure there are mothers on here that really, excuse me, that resonate with what I'm saying. Sometimes you just need to have a break. And having scheduled regularly duvet days, especially coming off social media. Social media can be quite triggering a lot of times because there's so much information on there and so much like racist abuse, you know, and it's hard. It's hard to stay optimistic when you're constantly being hammered by all of this negativity all the time. So take a break. Give yourself a break. Schedule it out. Schedule it regularly. Schedule it regularly. Put and pen it out. Don't pencil it out. Put it in pen to make sure you do it. So you stay consistent with what you need to do with taking care of yourself. It's really, really important. And then when you recharge and do all that stuff, then you can think, oh yeah, I can do this. You can think about, okay, well, where am I? Because a lot of times we're just on the hamster wheel, and we need to be able to just pause and take a break and go, okay, well, where am I? So take the duvet day. Take that duvet day. You know, it's so important. And the last thing about remaining optimistic is to make sure you check in with your support network regularly. Check in with your support network regularly. That's number 5. Because if you don't have a support network, you are going to feel bad. You can't do this by yourself. A lot of us, and I know a lot of us as black people struggle with this, and that's because of the environment that we had growing up with our families. It wasn't safe for a lot of us in our families. So we find it really hard to connect with other black people, with black spaces, because we don't want to get triggered. It triggers us. It triggers us, and it's like, oh, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be around too many black people because, you know, they're going to make me feel some kind of way, or they're going to judge me, or whatever. And there's a lot of anxiety around that. And this is something that I hear comes up over and over and over again about doing this work. So many black people feel so triggered by other black people, and they find it so hard to get close and get vulnerable to other black people because they're still carrying a lot of pain and whatever from, you know, from the relationship they, you know, the painful relationships they had with family members. You know, for a lot of sisters, it's because they've got, you know, unresolved pain from their mums. You know, if this is you, I am going to be doing the Wounded Daughters workshop, don't forget. So you can sign up if you go to click the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. You can go to the link that says about the Wounded Daughters waiting list, and you can sign up there. It's going to be at the end of March, and we're going to be talking a lot about self-nurturing, self-mothering. It needs to be done because there's so many of us as black women that just don't know how to do it, and it needs to be done. So that's 5. That's the 5 things. So the first thing, I'm just going to recap. So the first thing is, you know, sit with your feelings. Sorry, be patient. Be patient. You know, be patient. It takes time to do this stuff. What is this situation trying to teach you? Number 2, take a break. You know, actually, sorry, go back to basics. Number 3. My notes are all over the place. Go back to basics. Number 3. You know, it's important to go back to basics. Number 4 is to, let's have a look, is to check in with your support network. Check in with your support network regularly. You can't do this by yourself. You really can't. And the last thing is, I don't know. Oh, take a break. Take a break and have a you know, a duvet day or whatever, so that you can rest, pause, think about what your needs are. A lot of us struggle to heal because we don't know what our needs are. You know, it's important. So if you know somebody that's you know, that would benefit from the broadcast today, tag them, share it with them, let them know. Thank you for those that they've just joined. You have to watch the replay. Yeah, just tag them. You know, it's important. If you are interested in the workshop, don't forget you can go to the link in the bio, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net, heal.juneallen.net if you live in London and you want to attend. It's 5 minutes from Bond Street. If you live internationally, you can also sign up for the free e-guide, which is also in the link. And you can get a little taste of what happens in the sessions, and then you get the journal prompts and all the rest of it. So thank you so much. We're going to have to hop off. I've got a call with a client at 1:45, so I'm going to have to hop off. But thank you so much for joining me today. I don't take for granted that you know, that you've chosen to spend time with me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, if you've got any questions or anything about what I've spoken about today, send me a DM and I will answer it. Okay, send me a DM. All right, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.